Hey, this is Michelle Kittner from the Gulfport School District, and in this video, we're going to be talking about circles. This is a two-part video. By the end of this video, you will be able to find the circumference of a circle when given either the radius or the diameter. And in the second video, you'll find area. The standard that goes with these videos is 7.G.4. So in that I can statement, there were a lot of new words that you may not have heard before. Circumference, center, you know what that is. Diameter, radius, and pi. Those are all new words. So let's talk about what each of those means. The circumference is the distance around a circle. So when you draw a circle, you draw its circumference. Its distance around is its circumference. It's kind of like perimeter, except perimeter is for polygons that have straight sides. A circle is not a polygon, so we call the distance around it circumference. And when we talk about it, we use a capital C to denote circumference. Okay, the center is exactly what it sounds like. It is the center of the circle. It's the spot right in the middle. It's equidistant from each point on the circle. So we can pick any point right here, anywhere on the circle we want. Okay, anywhere here. And all of these points, if I draw a line from the center to each of these points, it's going to be the same length. Each of these lines is the same length. My lines aren't very straight, but you get the idea. So it's equidistant from every point on the circle. It's often how we name the circle. So if this circle had a capital A in here, we would call that circle A. The diameter is the distance across the circle, but it has to go through the center. We could draw a line right here and say that went across the circle, but it didn't pass through the center, so that is not a diameter. Let's just get rid of that. However, this is a diameter. It goes from a point on the circle through the center to another point. We can draw diameter anywhere, really, as long as it goes from one edge to the other through the center, and it's a straight line. One edge to the other, and there's a diameter. All of those are diameters of the circle. They split the circle in half. And when we talk about diameter, we use a lowercase d to talk about it. Now, radius is kind of like diameter. It has to have the center, but it only goes to one edge. It doesn't go through the center. It stops at the center. So it's the distance from the center to any point on the circle. So that would be a radius. Oh, there's another radius. But look, when I drew the two radii, I drew a diameter. So it turns out that the diameter is just a radius plus another radius, or the diameter is 2 times the radius. Something important to remember. Now, let's see. Let's practice here finding the radius. So we said that the diameter is 2 times the radius. Well, now how can we find the radius if we have the diameter? Let's try and get this radius by itself. Okay, let's use some algebra. So if we want to get this by itself, 2 and the radius are being multiplied. So in order to use inverse operations and isolate the r, we want to divide by 2, but whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So the diameter divided by 2 equals radius, or you could say radius equals diameter divided by 2. So let's use that here. We have a diameter of 2.5 inches, so we have radius equals 2.5 divided by 2. All right, so 2.5 divided by 2 is 1.25. So the radius here is 1.25 inches. Okay, well here we have a radius, but we don't have diameter. But remember, we said diameter is 2 times the radius. So diameter is 2 times 1.5. Diameter is 3 feet. Let's check them. So here, if this whole thing right here is 1.25 inches, well, let's say this is the middle. No, sorry, the whole thing is 2.5. Right here is 1.25, a radius, and this radius is 1.25. Then when we put them together, we get 2.5. Okay, here we have this is 1.5 feet. And if we draw another radius straight up from it, 1.5 feet, when we add those together or measure the whole thing, we'd get 3 feet. Okay, well now we want to find the ratio of circumference to diameter. And I gave you the circumference here, okay? So what we did is we took the circumference to the diameter. It's approximate. That's what this little squiggly equals sign means. It means approximately or about. So we have the circumference is about 7.85 and the diameter is 2.5. Here the circumference is about 9.42 and the diameter is 3. Okay, so when we divide this 7.85 divided by 2.5, we end up with 3.14. Remember, it's approximate. And when we divide this one, 9.42 divided by 3, we also end up with about 3.14. This is what we call pi. Pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter. Let's look at that on the vocabulary sheet. Pi is the ratio of the circumference to the diameter, and once we put in a ratio, we can go ahead and divide it. Pi equals circumference over diameter. Pi equals about 3.14. We use 3.14 for pi a lot. So now if we know that pi is the circumference divided by the diameter, how can we use that to find circumference? So pi equals circumference divided by diameter. And we want to isolate circumference. We want to have circumference by itself on one side of the equals. Well, what's happening here between circumference and diameter? It's being divided, right? Circumference is being divided by diameter. So what's the inverse operation there? It's multiplication. So we want to multiply by diameter. Sorry, diameter over 1. Not diameter over diameter. So. But whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So here we have diameter times pi equals circumference times diameter over diameter. Remember, these just cancel out. They become 1. I'm going to rearrange this because does it matter what order we multiply in? No, it doesn't. The commutative property of multiplication says that I can switch those. So I'm going to say pi times diameter equals circumference, or circumference equals pi times diameter. You'll hear people all the time say circumference equals pi d. It just means circumference equals pi times diameter. This is a formula you need to remember. I wanted to show you where it came from, but you need to commit that formula to memory as best you can. Okay, I'm going to work one, and then I'll let you do one. So if the diameter of a circle is 4 centimeters, what is its circumference? So let's see. Circumference equals pi times diameter, and it tells you to use 3.14 for pi. So circumference equals 3.14 times the diameter, and it tells you the diameter in the circle is 4 centimeters, and it's right there. So times 4. And when we multiply 3.14 times 4, we get 12.56. So the circumference is about 12.56 centimeters. Remember, pi is an estimate, not an estimate. Pi is rounded at 3.14, so it's always approximate. Okay. Now this one I threw a little trick in there at you. I gave you the radius instead of the diameter. So you're going to have to remember that the diameter equals 2 times the radius. I want you to pause the video for a minute, try and work this out, and then we'll come back and work it together. Okay, you're back. So let's work through this. So we know the radius is 1.5 feet. It says it's right here. Half of the diameter, halfway across the circle. So diameter equals 2 times 1.5. So the diameter, 2 times 1.5 is 3 feet. Well, now we can use that formula that you remember of circumference equals pi times diameter. Circumference equals 3.14 times 3. And 3.14 times 3 is 9.42. And that was feet. So the circumference here is 9.42 feet. How'd you do? Did you get that one? I hope so. Remember, for circumference, you need to know circumference equals pi times diameter. Sometimes you'll see it as circumference equals 2 times pi times diameter. Let me show you where that comes from. So we have circumference equals pi times diameter. And remember, diameter equals 2 times the radius. So I could plug that in, plug this in for d. Pi times 2 times the radius. And just to clean it up a little bit and make it look better, it's circumference equals 2 times pi times the radius, because it doesn't matter what order we multiply in. You will see both of these. Remember them. Do your best to remember them. Write them down if you have to, but they're very important.